The regular thing was to do training on a Friday afternoon, and then people would go to the bar afterwards.
It was a really windy day, just not very nice weather, hardly anybody in the water.
The R&R team used to train Friday nights. Would have been myself, Flash, Dutchy, Jane, Dave Armstrong, and I'm not sure who else, but anyway, it was one of those days where you get the odd day during summer where you get a big nor'westerly blowing rather than the regular southwesterly. It was one of those days at that time of year where there's no bank at all, so you go into the water and it just drops away very, very quickly. There was this very strong northwesterly wind blowing, which meant that it was quite choppy and blowing. The current and the wind were blowing into the groin, forms a rip right next to the groin, dragging people out, which is a bit of a trap for weaker swimmers. There really wasn't many people on the beach, or really anyone else on the beach at all. Harry Pinner was a nipper parent. He had kids in nippers. His wife was the junior officer at the time that ran the nippers. So I knew who he was, but I wouldn't say I knew him. So we were doing R&R training. I don't really remember I don't remember it happening, but I know from when we talked about it afterwards that I think it was one of Harry's kids came running up to us to tell us that his dad was in trouble in the water. And he was right over next to the groin, which was not a great place to be, with that northwesterly wind blowing. And Harry was not a strong swimmer at all.
I remember Harry, who I knew wasn't a very strong swimmer.
I remember swimming out to him. He wasn't very far out, probably about halfway to the end of the groin.
So the whole team just ran over. Some of the guys went into the water.
I remember swimming out to him, and I remember being with Flash, that we swam out to him, and I guess other members of the team probably did too. At the time, Flash and myself would have been the two strongest swimmers in the team.
So when the guys were in the water, we got the Oxyviva out, ready to go.
When we got there, he was unconscious. I remember Flash attempting a couple of quick breaths of resus while we were out the back, and then we decided the best thing to do would actually be just to get back to the beach, because it wasn't far, as quickly as possible where we could do it right.
And it was basically, as soon as they got him back to the shore, the Oxyviva was ready. We never did any actual mouth-to-mouth. We put the mask straight on and then put the Oxyviva straight on.
We must have carried him out of the water, with the whole team there to help, so it wouldn't have been difficult. Up onto the dry sand, unconscious and not breathing. We established that pretty quickly. And we started doing resus on him, and I guess as an R&R team we were well practiced at doing resus as a team.
Textbook resus straight away. Ids was timing, had stopwatch out because he had it out for training. We were swapping cardiac every 2 minutes. I had the hands on the head and the mask, and we swapped every 4 minutes.
I don't know how long we did resus for. I know we did it for long enough that and change operators at least a couple of times, so we must have been at least a few minutes there. So there was a guy who came up first and said he was a doctor, and sort of muscled in and started taking over the chest compressions and stuff, and he was just awful at it. He really didn't look like he knew what he was doing. Someone effectively just elbowed him out of the way and said, "Look, you don't know what you're doing, get out of the way." A second guy came up who was a doctor, and he came up and he was watching what we were doing. He said, "Well, you guys clearly know how to do your resus." So he left it to us, left us to keep doing what we were doing, and he was doing other checks and looking for a pulse and doing what he could. An ambulance had been called. Again, that must have been pretty quick. But the ambulance guys came down to where we were still doing the compressions and doing the resus, and they sort of got us to stop for a sec so they could have a good look and assess him, and they basically assessed him pretty much straight away and said, "It's too late. He's not going to recover. He's not coming back." And there's no point in continuing resus. That was a pretty hard thing to hear, because you do all the training and you're used to this idea that you keep going and until it works, and to sort of be told it's too late. It's over. There's no need to continue. It's a strange feeling, because then suddenly you're standing there doing nothing, but you still feel like you should be doing something, but you reach that point where there's nothing else could be done. So it had a pretty big impact on everybody over the next few weeks, especially obviously Harry's family and his kids and that because they were like nippers.
It makes an impact on you for life, really. Makes you realise it can happen very, very quickly and at any time.